Chapter 18. Dad's driving so fast. I'm pressed against the soft leather seat of his car as he accelerates up the hill. Neither of us has said a word since we left the police station. I wish he'd get mad or yell or something. Staring straight ahead in silence is killing me. I'm sorry. My voice cracks and seems to evaporate into the air. Dad chews his bottom lip and glances out his window. I know. Those two words give me some courage. I didn't do anything wrong. He stares straight ahead. You didn't pull an Alicia on anyone? You didn't lie to me about it? Or to the police? Okay. For God's sakes, Lexi, I had to come and pick you up at the police station. I can feel him ramping up. All this crap has been going on while I was away and you didn't even tell me? I'm your father. What if you've been hurt or killed? All because you didn't want to tell me what kind of trouble the two of you were in. I'm fine, I say quietly, facing the side window. Thanks for asking. I see him flinch at my words, and I'm glad. He glances at me. Good, he says, the harsh edge to his voice softens somewhat. That's good. As soon as we get home, I'll get in touch with a few lawyers I know, and we can get rid of this two-bit ambulance chaser you met with down at the station. Miss Alvarez? I ask. I like her, and Detective Nato said that she's one of the best defensive attorneys in the state. Dad winces as I say the detective's name. I'll tell you one thing, young lady. From now on, I'm in charge. I say who you talk to and who you don't. Keeping this to yourself is what let it get so far out of control in the first place. I wish I could just hand everything over to him and Miss Alvarez in a neat little package. There's nothing I'd like more than to take myself out of the equation, but I know I can't. I was only trying to help, I say, figuring this is what he wants to hear right now. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. And how's that working for you? He asked, pulling into the circular driveway. You're busy fixing it while I get a frantic phone call from your sister that the cops taking you away in handcuffs. Dad shakes his head as he reaches for the door handle. I don't want you talking about this with anyone, not even Cecilia. She's already upset enough. I walk towards the stone steps that lead down to the patio, glancing once at the space in the driveway where my car should be. I hope Miss Alvarez is right and I'll get it back tomorrow. I feel trapped not having any way to get around. Not that Dad's going to let me out of his sight. Lexi! Ava shouts as soon as I walk in the door. She runs up and throws her arms around me like I've been gone for months. Thank God you're okay. You wouldn't have had to thank anyone if the two of you hadn't been screwing around in the first place, Dad says, glaring at us. Anger wells up inside me. We weren't screwing around. I've been trying to deal with this since the first time the cops came to the door. He looks surprised. Which is right when you should have called me. I could have fixed this in 2 minutes, but now I'm going to have to spend money on lawyers and to take time off work. And there it is. You can't fix everything, Dad, I say, my voice is surprisingly cold. Even with all the money you have to throw at the problem, you can't get me to Stanford and you can't make the problem disappear. Dad looks around and for a split second it feels like he's going to throw something at me. I've never talked back to him like this before, and I feel a weight lift off my chest. I recognize the look on his face as he struggles to speak. It's powerlessness. Ava just stares at us. This isn't about money, he says, his voice gruff and low. This is about trust, and apparently you don't have any in me. Cecilia appears from the kitchen, but she won't even look at me. Her face is drawn and pale, and I know it's all just worries about her sister and the mysterious Ruby. For the first time since Dad picked me up, I feel ashamed of what we've done and the lies we've told to get here. I wonder if she thinks I really did it. If she thinks that someone she knows as well as she knows herself really is capable of murder. I know the sick feeling those thoughts leave in your stomach. There's some food on the counter, she says, her version of a peace offering to try to get things back to normal. Like I could eat. Dad says, brushing past her. He turns to me and Ava. You're grounded until I say you're not. He storms out of the room and we hear his door slam at the other end of the house. What happened? Ava finally asked. I was so freaked out when I saw all those cops in the office. I totally can't believe that they took you to the station in handcuffs. I watch her hands as she talks, punctuating the air with fingers wearing chipped pink nail polish. Could they really have held the knife? Could she really kill someone in cold blood? I pull myself away from these thoughts. Seriously, Ava, I say, walking back towards the kitchen. Calm down. Zane totally had everything under control. Ava continues, ignoring me. He talked to one of the detectives after he saw your car in the tow truck, and in 2 seconds he was on the phone. He said he was talking to some family friend. He got the lawyer for me, I say, wondering why he'd go to all that trouble. She's cool, even though she let the police keep the car. She puts one hand to her mouth. Oh my God, they took your car? It's gonna be okay. At this point, it seemed like the least of my problems. My lawyer said I should be able to get it back tomorrow. My lawyer. So weird saying those words. Are you hungry? Cecilia asked, lifting the lid on a pot on the stove. Her hand is shaking. Starving, I answer honestly. Usually my stomach rejects food in the middle of trouble, but it feels like I haven't eaten in a year. Cecilia carries a bunch of parsley to the cutting board. Let me just get some of this. Damn it! The knife clatters to the cutting board as she sticks her finger in her mouth. What happened? I ask. Cut myself. It's no big deal. She grabs a paper towel off the roll and wraps it around her finger. I nod, but I know she's lying. It is a big deal. In all the years I've known her, she's never once cut herself in the kitchen. Maybe Dad's blaming her for not watching us carefully. No wonder she's upset. Now I feel even worse that I dragged her into this mess. No way he can fire her. I can't imagine not having her around. Cecilia dishes out some chicken and rice with her good hand, and I take my place at the counter with Ava right beside me. I'm not sure if it's excitement or guilt that's got her all wound up. She's still talking about this afternoon while I take a few bites of dinner. So what did they say about Dylan? She asked. Did they give you any details? I watch her, alert for anything in her voice that might give her away. Not really. Just that he was killed sometime around dawn by the gym. Same way Casey was killed. I wonder where she was early this morning. She came into the kitchen and got coffee right after I did. But that doesn't mean anything. Her alibi is as good as mine, which means it sucks. Ava's biting her lip and she looks lost in thought. You mean stabbed? In the back of the neck, I confirm. I watch her face carefully. She looks at me. What's going on? That's what I need to figure out. One dead ex-boyfriend might be a coincidence. The cops think 2 means there's a serial killer. Cecilia drops the plate in the sink with a clatter and turns around to face us. I can see she's rattled. There are 2 dead boys? And they think you had something to do with it? I look over at Ava, but she's not giving anything away. They think Alicia did. All I know is that it wasn't me. Ava's eyes narrow. So what are you saying? That I'm involved somehow? Go on, say it. I want to believe she had nothing to do with all this. I mean, come on. This is Ava we're talking about, not some assassin. But there's a tiny nugget of doubt that isn't sure what to think anymore. All clues seem to lead to Alicia, and there are only a few things that I know for sure, and the main one is that I didn't do it. No, I finally say, although I'm not sure I believe it. But there are a bunch of cops in a brightly lit building that think one of us might. That's ridiculous, Ava says, turning away from me. I reach over and grab her arm, spinning her around. After all I've been through, she doesn't have the right to walk away from me. Not now. Then explain it to me, will you? Why do the cops have a photo of a girl who looks suspiciously like you in that neighborhood right around when Casey died, wearing a red leather jacket that just happens to be hanging in your closet? I look into her face, a face that's more familiar to me than my own, and realize that it's not the death that had me so upset. It's the fact that she could hide something from me so well. She has to know how our DNA got onto Casey. That's not evidence, Ava says, angrily shaking my hand off her arm. At most, it's a coincidence. Look, I had issues with Dylan, and whatever happened to him and Casey sucks, but I had nothing to do with it. She takes a step towards me. And what about you? You act all innocent, but how do I know it wasn't you in that surveillance photo? Her voice is just getting louder with every word. Maybe instead of just scratching Casey with keys, you took it a step further. Anger boils up inside me. I could have let them take Ava down to the station in handcuffs, but instead I volunteered. And this is the thanks I get? How dare you? Cecilia steps between us. Girls, stop at this instant. She pushes us apart roughly, looking from me to Ava in a way that suddenly makes me feel guilty. This is no way to act. Whenever one of you has the tiniest bit of trouble, you always pull together, and now you're out here screaming just when you need each other the most. Ava is shaking. I don't have to stand here and take Lexi's crap, she says. My crap? Doing her a favor is what got me into this in the first place. Cecilia puts Ava's hands in mine and clasps ours with her own. She doesn't say a word, but looks us both in the eyes and then turns to open the refrigerator. The feel of my sister's hand in mine makes the hard lump inside soften a little bit. That is, until she yanks her hand away. So the only piece of evidence you have is some stupid jacket that's hanging in my closet. I bought it at the mall a couple of weeks ago, like hundreds of other girls. Show me your arms, I say evenly. My what? What for? Somehow our DNA got under Casey's fingernails. The cops think he scratched one of us just before he died. You've seen my arms 1,000,000 times, she shouts. We were just at the beach together, for God's sakes. I wasn't looking for anything then. Ava pulls up the sleeves of her sweater to show me her unbroken skin. When I don't say anything, she pulls her shirt over her head and twirls around in front of me in her bra. Look closely, she says. You won't find anything because I wasn't there. She grabs her phone off the counter and throws it at me. Take my phone. Go ahead. Check the text, the call history, anything you want. The only thing I know for sure is that I was here, asleep in my bed, when Dylan was killed this morning. I see tears glistening in the corners of her eyes. But apparently my word isn't good enough for you anymore. And that's the sentence that hurts. Since we were born, it has been the two of us against the world, and I've been more alone these past few days than I've ever been before. The reality of all of it is I don't even think Ava could hurt anyone. Drive them crazy, maybe. Talk behind their back about their fashion sense, definitely. But kill someone? Sorry, I say quietly. You bet you're sorry, Ava continues, the heaviness of the moment obviously lost on her. You come home accusing me of... Ava! Cecilia says sharply. Ava's mouth shuts abruptly and she pulls her shirt back over her head. Fine, whatever. Don't be such a punch, I say quietly. The edges of a smile appear on her face for a quick second. She looks at my plate. Are you going to finish that drumstick? No, I say, pushing my plate towards her. You sure you don't want it? I'm sure, I say, watching her take a bite. Maybe if we say normal things to each other for long enough, it'll all go back to normal. Chapter 19. Maya gives me a sad smile as she walks me to my locker. All I can see of Ava is the back of her head as she rushes in front of me. So much for getting back to normal. Are you going to be okay today? Maya asked me. I try to focus on getting my books into the backpack I borrowed from Ava, and not at the way everyone's staring at me. I guess, I answer. It's better than sitting around at home waiting for the lawyer to call. Plus, Dad thinks that going to school is some kind of punishment. But it's good to get out of there. It's like everyone at home is just holding their breath waiting for the next bad thing to happen. School can't be worse than that. At least I hope not. I need something to get me through the next 8 hours until we meet with Miss Alvarez. Maya glances over her shoulder. You should know what you're walking into. People are talking. I wince, although I'm not surprised. It's not like yesterday's events when unnoticed. I figured, I say. It's not every day that someone gets led out of school in handcuffs. Not our school, anyway. She smiles but doesn't look happy. But most people say they don't believe you did it. Well, that's comforting, I say, watching people swarm the hallway. A girl I don't know in a swim team hoodie glances at me and then grabs the girl in front of her so she can look too. I wonder if they actually think I did it. I'm sure it'll all get fixed soon, Maya says. The cops know what they're doing. I can barely manage a grunt in reply. As we walk away from my locker, I see people whispering and turning away. Everyone tries to be casual, but I can feel the glances like ice on my skin as we head towards the quad. Maya squeezes my hand as she turns towards Building A. It's gonna be okay. I'll meet you for lunch, alright? I nod, not trusting my voice, feeling like a kindergartner on the first day of school. It's like the cops have given me a magic power that renders people completely silent the minute I come within 3 feet of them. Everyone's talking at a normal volume until they see me. Then it's dead silence, pun intended. I make it through the first 3 periods by staring either straight ahead or down at my books. Apparently I was wrong. The only thing worse than sitting at home and waiting for bad things to happen is being at school and waiting for bad things to happen, knowing that half the people around you are looking forward to the show. Hey, Zane says, pulling me towards him with one arm around my shoulder as we walk to Spanish. 24 hours ago, things were so different. I feel so much bottled up energy, I'm not sure how I'm going to sit at my desk and conjugate verbs for an hour. Hey, yourself, I say, trying to pretend that I'm not on the verge of losing it. Thanks again for calling Miss Alvarez. She's been cool. Anytime. Glad to see she got you out of the joint. He looks around at the people in the quad. No Ava? I shrug. I hadn't seen her since she bolted out of the car this morning. She's not exactly helping things anyway. Zane looks concerned. Did you guys have a fight? Sort of. Not really. I try to put into words, but I can't. She's just been different lately. I look away from him. I don't know. Zane is silent for a moment. You really don't think Ava had something to do with this? He finally asks. I don't want to think about it right now. I don't want to try to come up with reasonable explanations for all the clues that seem to be pointing right at us. Zane touches my arm. Because whatever's going on, she'd never do something like that to you. She was a wreck when they took you away yesterday. And I saw her in Annie in 9th grade. She's not that good an actress. I don't answer. I want to believe him. I really do. I want to know that Ava would never betray me like that. She's been part of me since before we were born. And while there's none of that mystical twin crap with us, no private languages, no feelings of pain when she gets hurt, no telepathy, I can't imagine not having her next to me. You think I don't see it, but I do. Zane continues. You pretend she drives you crazy, that you don't have anything in common, that you've carved out these specific roles for yourselves over the years. He pauses. But I know that's all bullshit. She'd do anything for you, and you know it. I turn to face him. So how do you explain the jacket that mysteriously shows up in both the surveillance photo and her closet? The speeding ticket, the hair salon, even the bartender at the club that night. Only 2 of us can pretend to be Alicia, and the only thing I know for sure is that none of those have been me. How many girls have bought red leather jackets recently? And what if it is her in that photo? So she went out that night. Doesn't mean she had anything to do with Casey's death. But why wouldn't she tell me the truth about where she was the night Casey was killed? Why would she just let me get ambushed at the police station like that? It feels like we're playing tennis. Every excuse he can volley at me, I have an answer that I can smack back at him. There's one answer I haven't wanted to look at too closely. One that makes so much sense. It scares me. Maybe, I say, hesitating because once I say it, it might become real. Maybe Dylan broke up with Ava because he knew too much, didn't want to get implicated, and maybe that's what got him killed. Zane glances at me. You watch too much crime TV. He doesn't believe me. Nobody will believe me. And your opinion of the average person is way too high, I reply. You and Ava are not exactly average people, he says. So, Miss Alvarez says, flipping back through the papers in a large folder on her big wooden desk. It looks like we got some decisions to make. I don't like any of the options. Dad grumbles from his seat next to me. Are you trying to tell me there's no easy way to make this whole mess disappear? Miss Alvarez puts her palms together. She looks so different today with her hair pulled back in a severe bun and a dark brown lawyer suit on. Less, I'm here to help, and more, don't screw with me. Which is basically what you want in someone whose job it is to save your life. I'm afraid not. There's just too much evidence for an easy dismissal. I can help her avoid actual jail time at this point, but she's going to have to be arraigned, and my guess is that it will be sometime in the next 2 to 3 days. Arraigned, jail, words I never thought would be said about me. Everything still feels so surreal, like someone's going to call off this practical joke at any minute. What are the charges exactly? Dad asked Miss Alvarez. I know he agreed to keep her as my lawyer only because the lawyers he knows said that she's the best criminal defense attorney around. He hates that she wasn't his choice, and the creeping tone of impatience in his voice gives that away. Miss Alvarez's face is impassive. 2 counts of first-degree murder with a possible additional charge of lying in wait for Dylan Harrington. Hearing the charges out loud suddenly makes it all real. So, what? I breathe rapidly to keep from crying. The cops aren't even out looking for the real killer? They did look for the real killer, Miss Alvarez says, her eyes steady on me. They found you. I feel like I've been punched in the stomach. But I didn't do anything, I say quickly. This is crazy. I get assaulted by some asshole and the next thing I know, I'm the one in trouble. I only met Dylan once when he was with Ava. She glances at Dad, which is where some of the decisions have to come in. Miss Alvarez taps the front of the file folder with the end of her glasses. Listen, they have evidence that put you in the vicinity right before Casey's death. She pulls out a paper and glances at it. They have the sweater covered in blood, they found at the scene, Casey's DNA on your keys, and the traces of blood on your steering wheel. But I already explained all that, over and over. I must have had blood on my hands from scratching him when he attacked me, and that's how it got on my steering wheel. I know, she says, and that's the story we're going to build for your defense. She leans forward on the desk. They have nothing but theories for Dylan Harrington's death at this point. Most of what they have is hearsay. The DNA evidence they found on Casey is shaky at best. From what I can see, we've got enough wiggle room to get out of it. So the DNA they got from Casey didn't match the girls? Dad asked. I can tell from the eagerness in his voice that he's looking for any bit of good news. Miss Alvarez shrugs. It did, but there's no evidence that it happened right before his death. There's some newer genetic testing that they might be able to do to separate each girl's DNA, but it has to be sent out and it takes a long time. And there's no guarantees that the actual differences will be enough to tell which girl's DNA was actually under his fingernails. Right now, we can make the argument that Lexi's DNA got there during the struggle in the car the previous night. In any case, it's a hole in the case big enough to drive a truck through. Her eyes narrow as she looks through the notes in her files. There's no fingerprint evidence that he has seen, at least none that can be easily explained. What do you mean, easily explained? Dad asked. She looks pointedly at me. It means there aren't any of Alexis' fingerprints in Casey's blood. That would be difficult to explain. There aren't any because I wasn't there when he was killed. I say again. I think about the girl in the red jacket. Neither of us was. Miss Alvarez closes the folder. Which is where our decisions come in. She turns to Dad. Nobody has asked for a sample of Ava's DNA or fingerprints. Right now, there's nothing concrete linking either girl directly to the deaths, and I don't think there's a jury in the world that convict Alexia on such flimsy evidence, despite the seeming coincidences. We just need to decide if we're going to offer up Ava to the prosecution or try to keep her out of the proceedings altogether. Dad hesitates, then takes a deep breath and turns to me. I agree. They'll never convict you. If what you're saying is true, there's no way to prove that you had anything to do with the death of those boys. No sense in throwing your sister under the bus if we don't have to. So, what? I get to deal with all this while Ava just sits home and watches TV? I can't get the image of the girl in the red jacket out of my head. My resolve to keep Ava out of this is slipping. As long as you're telling us the truth, you can both sit and watch the entire seasons of the Kardashians for all I care. They won't convict you. Dad sounds so sure of what he's saying. Everything I'm telling you is true. I didn't have anything to do with this. So the only other answer is that someone is setting you up, Dad says. Who would do that? Miss Alvarez shakes her head. Doesn't matter. It's not our job to prove who committed these crimes. My only job is to convince the judge that Alexa didn't. I glance at her. If we can find out who really did all this, then Ava and I are both off the hook. Someone hacked the online page. I turn away from Dad. He's gonna be pissed. The one we set up for Alicia. You set up a page for her? Dad practically shouts. How far did you two take this thing? Miss Alvarez ignores him and sits forward, interested. Hacked? What do you mean? I glance down at the floor. I mean, we set up a page for her, in case someone went looking. We wanted to make it feel like Alicia was real. Anyway, we found out that someone else got into it and has been posting Photoshop pictures of Alicia in places we've never been. I hesitate. There was even a message that we didn't put there. One from the night that Casey was killed. Why didn't you tell me this in the first place? She turns to her computer. What's the address? Miss Alvarez types quickly, her short nails clicking on the keyboard. She turns the monitor so that we can see it. Is this it? There's the same bad selfie from the other day. Yeah, that's it. Dad leans forward but doesn't say anything to me. I can feel the disappointment flowing off him. What parts were hacked? She asks. Scroll up. The new stuff's at the top. She passes the photos of Tijuana and a reggae festival. Right there, I say, spotting the message from the night Casey was killed. We didn't write that. She grunts, taking a closer look. Has anyone else seen this? I don't know. We originally locked Alicia's page so that only people we wanted to could see it. But now it's open so anyone can search it. The password's been changed and we can't get into it now or change anything. Miss Alvarez scrolls up faster and passes some new pictures that weren't there the other day. Wait, stop! What? Dad asks. That one, I say, pointing to the screen. It wasn't there before. I put my hand to my mouth and take a quick breath as I realize what I'm seeing. Jesus! It's me and Casey in the parking lot. My stomach lurches as I recognize the moment when he was pounding on my car window. You can't see my face in the shadow of the car, but I remember the feeling of fear all too well. Go up more. Miss Alvarez scrolls up to the next photo in the feed. That's Dylan, I say, pointing to a photo of Ava and Dylan at the lifeguard tower. His face is a mask of fury as he shouts and gestures in her direction. That must have been when Ava caught him cheating on her. I feel sick and back away from the desk. Oh my God, someone's been following us around and documenting everything. But why? I hear Miss Alvarez tapping on the keyboard. There's more, she says. I shake my head. It already feels like my reality is splitting in two. I don't want to see any more. I collapse back into my chair and put my head in my hands. Who's that? Dad asks. I don't recognize that boy. I lift my head towards Miss Alvarez and I see a photo of Eli and me standing on the lawn at the apartment party just seconds after he figured out Alicia. There's hurt behind the anger in his eyes in the picture. I can't believe someone put it up there for everyone to see. That's Eli, a boy Alicia went out with a few times. That's as much as I can manage to explain right this minute. What are we gonna do? I ask. I feel helpless and alone. I'll get some people on these, she says, and hope that nobody else finds them first. I'm grasping at ideas as they flash through my brain. But if both Ava and I are in them, then it proves that someone else was there. Someone else was watching us. Miss Alvarez turns away from the screen. All these prove is that you had motive and opportunity. Showing a jury photos of you and your sister with boys who were murdered shortly after they were taken would definitely change the case, and not in your favor. I glance back at the image on her computer, and my heart races as reality hits me. She's right. All of the guys were killed after the photos were taken. All except one. Eli.